Hi, I'm Jennet Ingle, and this is Read Repair Shop. It's the next best thing to an in-person read lesson, all done through the mail and through the internet. I love the 21st century. Today I have 3 reads that were sent to me by Dave. I'm going to analyze them and hopefully make some improvements and then send them straight back to him. And I really hope that this is a helpful video, both to him and to you. These 3 reads that he has sent me are in 3 very different stages of being finished. Read number 1 basically plays, and I'll talk about it last, I think. And reads 2 and 3 share a lot of similarities. 2 is much more finished than 3, but you can see here, I'm going to show you backlit pictures that I already took. You can see here that it is not very visible or very clear where the rooftop is on these reeds, and I can feel just with my fingertips that the tip of the tip is very, very thick still. So especially as I look at this read number 3 here, which is the least finished of the bunch, I can feel a great deal of thickness here. When I beep it, it almost just about beeps. I can't quite get a crow. And when I put it on the oboe, I'm getting almost nothing at all. But it's not as though it's not been scraped. If I can get a plaque in here. What I'm seeing, I think, is that in order to get it vibrating even as much as it is vibrating, there's been quite a lot of scraping that's happened further back in this area. It seems like Dave was really trying to get vibration to happen by doing a long scrape, which is absolutely what I recommend, but we don't have enough out of the tip yet to actually start vibrating. And I'm going to make a bold statement that if we just get this tip thinned down, we'll at least start to have some vibration, we'll at least start to be able to play. So I'm scraping on the left and right hand side. And as I scrape, I'm being really thoughtful about going all the way through the tip and off onto the plaque. It was possible before for me to just feel thickness right up in that area as I ran my fingers over it, and I don't want that there at all. Other blades, same thing. And you can see that, I mean, I'm getting tons of cane off on my knife. So just doing that, let's see what difference we made. Doing only the tip, thinning the tip dramatically, gave us a crow. It's still about a C sharp because the reed is quite closed, but we'll get that down. Okay, so after I worked in the very tip, defining that rooftop and thinning the sides of the tip all the way to the corners, I'm going to work backward. When I make reeds, I think about having a line here at the bottom of the heart to define that a little bit more. And right now I don't really see that at all in Dave's reed. It feels smooth all the way up through the heart. Almost, again, as though his long scrape was perhaps a little overzealous in this area. So I'm going to just go back behind the heart a little bit, because what I want for stability is for the heart to feel like it's the thickest part of the reed. Yes, we have to scrape through it to get vibration to happen, but ultimately it needs to be the structure of the reed. So I'm going to work behind the heart, right up to that wall at approximately 60 millimeters, and I'm leaving a strong wall pretty intentionally because there's already a lot of wood out of that heart area. My suspicion is that we had a long scrape in place, the reed wasn't vibrating yet, and so Dave got enthusiastic about scraping through the heart, trying to get vibration to happen. And ultimately that may not prove to be the best idea. So let's see what I've done now. So I've dropped the crow from a C sharp to a B just by scraping in the back. You saw that I didn't touch the heart at all. I'm going to go ahead and clip a little bit because the tip looks long to me, because I feel like I can bring that B crow up to a C, have some balance in place. Get my cutting block in there so you can see what I'm doing. Just a small bit. Okay, we're back up to a C sharp. That's okay, because I still see more that I can scrape, but let's see what I've done. We're beginning to get a little more depth in there, not as much as I would like yet. The other thing that makes me nervous about this reed, and I'm seeing it on both blades now that I've got my plaque in, is that here right along the right-hand rail of the reed, it's very, very thin, and it's thin all the way up here. Let's see. I'm looking for a comparison. On the left-hand side of the heart here, I hope you're able to see, I can see bark still. It's nice and strong. And even though we're thin in the area behind there, that's where I scraped, you can still see some integrity to that rail, to that side of the reed. Over here, though, it feels as though Dave's scrape has come all the way over the side and has gone up into the heart area. So that's really disrupting the structure of the reed. It's giving me a little bit of concern. Because I'm tempted, I want to scrape in the, oh, look, I see it, the same thing on this side. It's fine here, I see a rail, but then right up in here, he's gone right to the edge of that heart. And even though there's a notch there that I would like to scrape out, I'm a little concerned because we've lost so much good stuff here on the far right-hand side of the heart. So I'm going to be interested when I pick up the other reeds and start working on them if I see the same thing. This feels like a scraping idiosyncrasy that might carry through. It'll be interesting. So I'm not touching this area where I've drawn because there's already too much out, but I am going to just take care of that notch because it's annoying me. I'm not going to touch the heart otherwise. I'm just going to keep working in the tip to make sure that the tip and the back are both thinner than the heart. I'm going to do that over and over again until the crow comes down, then I'm going to clip. As I work in the tip, I'm being very careful to stay on the far right-hand side and the far left-hand side to let the center continue to think that it's thick. Again, because I want the structure in this reed holding it open. Got it back to a C at least. I'm clipping a little just because it looks long. This is, visually I'm looking at the reed and comparing it to my mental image of what a reed ought to look like. And in that case, the clip really helped to deepen it, to bring the pitch together, to give me a little more structure. It's a little disappointing to me that still this reed feels super skinny. And I'm going to point out something that I noticed when I was measuring earlier. I was looking at the overall length and I was concerned that Dave had wound his thread over the end of the tube. I don't actually think he has, unless this is an unusually short tube, which he did not indicate. But I do think it's possibly a very small, the tube has a very small opening. And I also think it's possible that he's wound this reed on very long, because the throat, right in this area where my fingers are, looks extremely narrow to me. I contrast that with his reed number 1 over here, and you can see that there's a lot more width right here than there is right here. And it could be that that fundamental issue is part of the problem. He indicated that this cane on this reed number 3 is a sort of generic student cane that he doesn't really know the shape or the gouge of. And that makes sense to me. Because of course when you're learning to make reeds, you buy the cheapest piece of cane you possibly can, so that you can wreck it. But once you're as close as this, I think you begin to want some more consistency, and I think you begin to want to know more about what you're doing and what you have to be working with. So maybe my two suggestions here would be to maybe wind on about 1 millimeter shorter so that you have a little bit more thickness here. I usually wind at about 73 millimeters. It wouldn't shock me to hear that this was wound on at 74. Just because of how skinny it is right there. And that may be the cause of the smallness that I'm feeling as I play it. But again, I'm working right now to continue to thin the tip and to thin the back. And I'm going to clip, and I'm hoping to bring the whole thing back into balance. It's a little frustrating, this guy. It really is sitting right up at a C-sharp crow. It's feeling very closed and very skinny, no matter what I do. As I look back and forth from side to side on this reed now, I can see that on the upper blade, the rooftop sits here at about 65. On the lower blade, it's actually a little bit higher. So, you know, symmetry is key. I'll go ahead and pull it down a little. And if you recall, it was mostly me that set in that rooftop in the first place. So, you know, I'll beat myself up on that. Maybe I eyeballed it a little too high. That got the crow down. Another clip. Sorry, you can't see what I'm doing because I keep coming out of the screen. So this reed still has a little skinniness to it, which I'm going to attribute to the narrowness of the shape and the tightness of the wind right here at the throat, which makes me think that either it was wound on long or that the piece of cane is just too narrow to really give us a lot of depth of sound. But having worked almost entirely in the tip and in the back, and just restructured this reed a little bit to allow the heart to think that it's heavier, I have a real crow here and I have a working reed. So hopefully that is helpful. I'm going to step now to reed number 2, which shares some qualities with reed number 3, right? It's similarly very skinny right at the throat. It's similarly scraped pretty hard. Oh, wow, look at that. It's scraped very hard through the heart, especially here on this right side of the heart. So the rail is taken away almost entirely on this side, all the way up into the heart. And on this side, remember the notch that I had right in this area of the purple reed, reed number 3? Well, this is not only a notch, but it's even a part of the shape a little bit, as though maybe the bunny ear didn't get cut off quite smoothly, you know, that little ear that's left over on shaped cane. And again, I see the same damage to the side over here. So as I'm looking at this, I'm picturing Dave scraping and just getting real aggressive over the side of the reed with his knife in this area. Again, the quantity of scraping that's happened in the heart itself was probably either part of the initial long scrape, going just a little bit, being a little bit overzealous, or it was him trying to get the reed to respond and being frustrated that it wasn't working, it wasn't responding. So, because this reed is a little bit more finished than reed number 3 was, because it's got the damage on the sides of the rails, I don't know how optimistic I am, but let's see what we got. It does crow. It's crowing like a high D. It does play a little. But it's definitely not playing down to pitch in any kind of comfortable way. And again, I can feel with my thumbnail or with my fingertips thickness at the tip of the tip. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing on this reed that I did on the other. I'm going to take care of this whoomp on the side, maybe by gently removing it like so. And then I'm going to start by working enthusiastically in the tip, making sure that the tip of the tip is the thinnest part. Because this whole reed is pretty thin, it would be easy for me to do some serious damage here and over scrape in the tip and break the whole thing down, but I'm going to try. This is something I talked about in my knife techniques video. Sometimes I'll get to the very, very tip of the reed and I'll angle my knife this way, more toward the tip of the knife than toward the handle where I normally would be. And I'll just scrape sort of across the tip of the tip to get that tip of that ridge off. Similarly, I'll come this way, I'll be angled along that rooftop, but instead of scraping in the rooftop, weighting it toward the tip of the knife so that I'm taking more from the left side than the right, I'm going to weight it toward the handle and scrape across the tip of the tip, just getting like almost nothing, just dust. But I'm trying to make sure that the very tip is the thinnest part. All right. Similarly, on the other side, you can see maybe that it's almost indistinguishable, the tip from the heart here. I'm drawing the rooftop I want to see, but I almost can't even feel it with my fingers. It's almost not there. So I'm going to have to cut in a little bit aggressively, because I just don't think that if the tip and the heart are the same, that we're going to end up with any control at all. I think there needs to be a transition there to stop the vibrations. The tip is in charge of vibrating, right? The tip is in charge of making the thing work, but the heart is then in charge of slowing those vibrations so that we have a little bit of weight to blow against, so that the whole thing stays a little bit more protected and a little bit more safe. And again, I have my concerns here. I'm working in the tip, but it is possible that there is so much out of the heart that this is not going to come together to be a good reed, but let's find out. Crow is definitely still high. I'll tell you, it's not the prettiest reed I've played, but it's working, and it's working better than it was. I'm going to take a look and see where my... Oh, look at this! We're going to be lucky. This nothing of a transition of a rooftop that I was seeing, again, it's placed a little bit too high. I'm going to pull it back. See if I can go more into the meat of the heart. I really like mine to sit at about 65 millimeters. This was sitting up more like 67. I am definitely, let's see, 65 is not universal, that's what I'm trying to say. 65 millimeters is what I use. Many people do 66 or 67, but since we were already having a problem with not enough tip to be thin and not enough heart to be thick, I feel like I'm very happy to pull that tip back and to try to restructure just in a slightly heavier part of the heart and see if we can make that work. See, I never give up on a read. I feel like you can recover almost anything, at least to a practice read. So I've gotten the crow down to a C sharp. I'm going to clip a tiny bit before I even work further back. Okay, so this read, our read number 2, definitely shares with number 3 this feeling of being very small, to where I can play it and I can make a pretty sound on it, but I can't really blow against it unabashedly. It's going to overblow. It's going to get too, well, let's just find out. That's if I try to put like real intense sitting in the orchestra kinds of air behind that reed, and it's just because it's not got enough support from the heart for me to be able to blow safely against it. I'll do a little work in the back behind the heart, again, because anything you can take out that's not heart will make the heart think it's bigger, or can make the heart think it's bigger. I know you see that I'm leaving these giant curls of cane. They're a little embarrassing looking, so I will get them off. Oh, it's counterintuitive to be scraping so much off of a reed that is already so little. And I'm not saying that this is going to turn into something spectacular, but I think it is possible to get it back into some sense of balance. So yeah, I can pinch it open with my fingers, I can lip it down a little bit, and I can play up and down the oboe, I can play in tune, it's okay. Definitely it doesn't want a ton of breath support from it. And I think in both of these cases, both of of our first two reed friends here, the two sort of fundamental problems are the smallness of the throat here, which either is narrow, a narrow-shaped piece of cane or a piece of cane wound on too long, and definitely this damage to the right-hand side on both reeds, on both blades of both reeds, that's really cut down on the structure of the reed, so that everything I've been trying to do to put structure back in, you know, it's helped, I think, but we're missing some fundamental parts of these reeds. But I do think they're better, so I'm going to set them down there, and I hope that this information is helpful. I always love seeing commonalities between reeds, because that seems like a habit that someone has made and can break in a good way. But this reed, reed number 1, is actually quite different from the other two, or seems to be. It's far more finished than the others, and it's got definitely a better transition from the tip into the heart, as you can see. Oh, wait a minute. It almost looks cracked on this side. Let me pretend that's not the case for a minute, and like... because I was really enthusiastic about this reed just a minute ago. I'm going to pretend that I didn't see that thing that I was seeing. Because I see a strong cut in here. It's maybe not shaped exactly the way I would have done, but I see that the tip of the tip is much thinner than the others. I see that we don't have this same quality of damage on the side, whether I can see shiny bark all the way up into the heart. So much stronger there. And the same on this side, that same feeling of damage is not the case. So everything about this feels just a little bit more consistent to me with my mental image of a reed right away than the others do. But let's see if there's still something we can do to improve it. It's crowing a C. It's pretty easy for me to play it pretty and for me to play it in tune. But I admit that I'm fixing things with my mouth as I do that. Let's just play that game of seeing what the reed wants to do if I don't help it. It's still pretty good, right? It's pretty stable. It gives me something to blow against. It's not very in tune up high. And I would love to be able to clip it. Oh, I have these concerns about this crack. It really looks like it wants to go. Did I do it? Tell you what, Dave, what I'm going to do, I'm going to work on this reed for a little bit because I'm interested and I want to see if I can bring its pitch up and stabilize it a little bit. But I'm also just going to throw in an extra reed when I send these back to you, one of mine, because maybe I made that crack because I didn't see it when I was first looking. And now I do. I don't know how I would have made that crack. But what I want to do to make this reed hold its pitch up a little bit better, I want to make sure that the sides of the tip are the thinnest part, which I think they are. They look pretty good, but I'm just going to do a little. Especially because I'm seeing this like U structure in the transition into the tip, which makes me think that maybe we've got a little extra thickness here and there. So I'm grabbing it. Oh yeah, there's a little bit for me to grab there. On this side, the side with the crack, do the same thing. Just a little. And I'm also going to take just a little tiny bit on both blades behind the heart. Again, I think I have a picture of this backlit, so I'll put that up in just a second. And I can see the spine looking strong and beautiful all the way up through the back and through the heart. But what I can't see is a distinction really between the back and the heart. And I feel like, again, the more we can make the heart feel strong, the more structured this reed is going to be. I mean, I like that a ton better. I'm going to give it the tiniest clip. And let me see, I'm going to do that game, play that game where I let go of the reed. So Dave's critique of this reed when he sent it to me was plays slightly, but more needs to be done. For me, I would say that this reed now feels really well balanced and feels pretty good. Shockingly good given that there's this incipient, is that a word? Crack really trying to come through. But what I would say is this. Dave, if you feel like this reed needs an easier response, I would work in this area and in this area. And cut in just a little bit more strongly there at the rooftop, because this reed has tons of beautiful, good stuff right in this area, but part of that is giving you resistance and giving you a lot of stuff that you're blowing against, and maybe you don't like that. So that would be an area that I would work in. If you feel like the reed, oh, that crack over there. I feel like I have to stop talking about this reed because every time I look at it, that crack grows more intense. I'm going to throw a replacement reed in this box for you, Dave. But I would say the same thing over here. If you want the response to be stronger, I would do a stronger cut in this area. If you want the sound to have more depth, I would work back here in the area behind the heart. If you feel like you generally want it to be a little bit easier, I would scrape gently across the entire heart. And if you feel like you want it easier without sacrificing any pitch, since it already had a little bit of flatness to it, then I would scrape specifically sort of this area and this area, the channels of the heart. But very, very, very gently. This reed feels orders of magnitude more controlled and more finished than these two did. But I think we've done some good things over here. Dave, I hope this has been super helpful to you. This has been a reed repair shop. We're all oboists here, right? We all hit reed slumps from time to time, and there's something so nice about like a non-judgmental third party just taking a look to see from the outside something you may have missed. If you would like me to analyze your reeds, you can visit jennetingle.com for more information. I would love to help you out. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Dave, for sending your reeds and trusting me with them. I hope this was helpful. Have a great day.